council.
So
I think we can revisit this every year and maybe somebody else can take it over next time, you know. Let's get work done with it. And Carol said she'll do secretary for me, so making sure the minutes are done. So she's recording it today, but purely for doing the minutes and making sure that everything we've decided and things we're going to do are documented.
Yeah, yeah.
So,
So if you speak, can you please say your name first?
yeah.
So we know.
Karen Lucioni.
Yeah, I think we know.
KL. So that's great. So what we've said is meetings every 2 months or as required. So it might be, and I'm saying we should have them in summer as well. I know probably August is not a good time for people going away, etc. But I think we need to have that continuity to make sure things are where we want it to be. And we'll fix that date at the end of the meeting.
Yeah, I'll go
with Richard to make sure it's in place and everybody knows when it's going to be, and I'll make sure it's not going to full council is and I've done the wrong date. There we go. So community action. So let's just start this, but I think people might have some other ideas that they want to add to it. But we need to be realistic and we need to make sure we can do it as well. So influence decision makers. So you know who they are. Look at identifying flood risk and create an effective grassroots flood plan. So I spoke to you, Pete, about this, didn't I? So I think that will come when we've got some other things done, so people will know who their vulnerable neighbours are, who needs help.
Who's Pete? Sorry.
Pete,
and
sorry.
what's your responsibility within this group?
Oh, well, I'm not a part of the group yet, because the group hasn't been formed.
In Simeon Street, yeah, same as you, yeah.
And a flood.
Yeah.
So we do agree that's in the
But
minute. Sorry, Pete.
No, it's okay, it's just
But
because
just to
we
get to
haven't-
this point, really, Pete's been a bit of a sounding board about what we kind of needed to get to this point, and then we've just all then decided what we need to do from there. And I thought we needed to start.
Just for the minutes. Sorry.
Yeah, we just needed to start.
Can I return the compliment? Sorry, who are you?
Colin.
Pardon?
Colin and Sarah also fled victims of Simeon Street. So
Oh,
there we
right.
go. Thank
Oh,
you.
yes, hello, Colin.
Hello. I just wanted to, let's not make it.
Thank you, Karen.
So we need to make sure people are signed up to flood warnings, as some people don't know about them, quite important I think. Look at flood insurance for people. We'll go through that in a bit more detail. Create a community network. Well, actually, I'll talk about that now. So I've started a website with all of this information on there. We realise that not everybody's going to be on the website to look at it. So also, Richard said I can have a shelf in here that I can put newsletters in and information in, so people can drop in and get it. So I suppose once we've started this, the next thing really would be to do a leaflet in every door. To make sure everybody knows how they can go to the website. They can phone up and give us their phone number if they're vulnerable. They don't want to come here, or they just want phone calls. Suzanne said she'll do those phone calls to make sure people know what everybody else knows from those other things. So we don't want to miss anything else. So we've got the phone calls, we've got the information on in the pub, and we've got the website. So hopefully it's good. We can, if that's not working, we can change it around. I put how to help recover the network quickly, but that's really part of the flood plan, I would say. And I've touched on it, inform and prioritise the vulnerable. I think that's really important to make sure we know any of those people we haven't seen before. But I think when the community came together that day, I think people did find out it was quite vulnerable, I'd say. But I think we need to just do a piece of work on that to make sure we know those who want to be. Monitoring local conditions. I mean, everybody's really good at this. You know, block drains and stuff. People do let me know. Eyes and ears, I can't be everywhere. Comment on presentations, if there's anything to do with flooding and planning in the area. So I managed to get the Pig Lane one stopped, which would have had in there. But for example, I think we need to do some education on people that are paving over their gardens. I've just seen one in Oakfield this week, just completely, I don't know, it's not even for a driveway, it's got a lamppost right in the middle of it, so you can't get it down. Develop a GDPR policy, which we've done, so I can look at that, so everybody's details will be safe. So I think that was really important. Also, community skills. Actually, I think it's really important that people get involved where they want to, as little or as much as they want to. And look at personal flood defence grants. So I've got, I'll give you the update on that now. So the stuff's come through from government, so that's going to be going in place shortly. And then we'll bring that back to, because I don't know how the surveys are going to be done, etc. It's quite complicated to get something back on. So I have asked about that today, and they know that we will bring it back to probably the next meeting about that. I think that's really important.
Is this
People know about that.
up to £5,000?
I think it's 6.
Is it, right, okay, that you can protect your own property with?
Yeah, but I do know that somebody said to me today, but again, it's not in place properly in the council yet until they do it. But say, for example, your insurance company tells you it's £8,000, you'll get £6,000. I don't know if your insurance will do that. Whatever the extra is, but I assume you're a choice of what you can do.
I can say from my insurance company,
Speak on it, say it.
from my insurance company, what they call it is the Build Back Better scheme.
Build Back Better scheme.
That is the thing from the insurance perspective. It's called the Build Back Better scheme. It's generally £10,000. Over and above the £10,000 that stands currently, it's £5,000 that comes from the government, and that's the flood resilience payment.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about, that one.
Yes.
Yeah.
Now, the flood resilience payment go on to the council, that's Isle of Wight Council scheme. For those who've been fortunate enough to have the £500 payment, if you signed up for that, you automatically, as I understand, go through to the flood resilience scheme, and that's £5,000. This is only for residential property owners. For businesses, it's a different aspect. But that's, as Karen's quite rightly said, the Isle of Wight Council have not put anything in place yet for applications. But if you've got the £500 or applied for that, I don't know what the issue is if you applied, failed to get that, but there is a distinction between the two. So be mindful of that. It's there, as I understand it currently, it's £5,000. Even if you haven't got the £500, you can still, as I understand it, apply for the £5,000. That's all I know currently. It's still in status.
So again, we'll make sure we get the details, and I'll put some stuff in here on the website, etc. The next meeting as well.
I think the people who didn't get the £500 or weren't eligible for one reason, if you put in your report what happened to the Section 19 report, I think that automatically puts you in the pot for
I'm going to
consideration
touch
as
on
well.
that Section 19 report. I've got it on that one as well. Yeah.
Do you know what the
Absolutely right.
difficulty is it's taken so long? They said they'd do it as soon as possible, and the ministers announced that it would happen on the 25th of October.
I'm not really
Seemed like as soon as
blaming people, but they put the money in, but they haven't put any money in to actually instantly do it. So it's getting the right people to do it that takes them away from their other job. So it's all of that. But I have had an update today that will be happening in the next week or so. I made sure that the last phone call I made to make sure. So I just want to open the floor really, see if there's anything else you want to add on to that. I mean, it's an organic thing really. I mean, we can, but I just wondered if anybody's got any ideas that they want to add to it, that they want to work on.
So can I ask, is the purpose of this meeting just looking forward? Are we looking at what's happened and getting reports back on that? Are we applying pressure
So I was going to touch on that later, Dan, but there's a company that's doing the Section 19 report. So they're coming to the March meeting to talk to us, and that will be available in April. And the same company is a big company, and
What's the name of the company?
Same guys that did this one last time, right?
JBA.
Consulting, I'll give you a copy of this if you want.
Yeah.
Oh, I've got a copy of my car. I'm ready to show you. I'll go and get it. The local flood authority.
development agency, are they?
They're doing their own one.
Right, okay.
And they've commissioned the same company, but a different part of it to do that. Modelling that they were talking about.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I've been asked, I don't know if Vicky will know this, because it'd be John really, I suspect, that does all that, I'll ask him. So I don't know if it's going to be about the same time, but I would say it's probably around the same time, probably like a month. Because the local flood authority don't answer these for foreign agencies. It's a different thing. The local flood authority is part of the Isle Council, the environment agency.
The other one council are the ones who asked for the section 19 report.
Yeah, that's statutory, you have to have them when there's flooding. Yeah. We haven't had any flooding in 2022, flooding we had in 21. Yeah.
So who's doing the calculations on all this? Is it, if it's the same people who've done the first report, wouldn't you think they would make sure that their calculations were correct rather than looking at what happened?
I tell you, I can't answer that either really, but they're
So
coming,
we kind of need an independent calculation to be done, otherwise we're relying on it.
Let's be specific, what are we talking about, the environment
So,
agency or the section 19?
So this report here, has basically got all the calculations of how the system should work and all the bits and pieces that should be in place for it to work. So, you know, it's a 1 in 100 year chance that it's not going to work, which we all know about. But, so, you know, if we can provide the evidence to say that this amount of water has come through and that system would have actually worked if everything was in place, then that's what we want really, isn't it?
I think that's what the two reports will
So,
do.
what we can't do is rely on someone who's done the first report because they want the first report to be absolutely correct.
They've done all the reports, there's a few of them.
Yeah, but we don't want that, do we? We want an independent report on that, doing the calculations, otherwise we're just going to... We don't know if they made a mistake in the first place. Because if they made a mistake in the first place, all we're doing is agreeing that all the calculations are correct. Unless we've got
That's
someone to
a
look at their
report,
calculations.
they just tell you what's there. I
Yeah,
don't
but
understand really.
there's calculations and there's calculations in engineering. It's who kind of asked for the report. So if you've got the bias report,
There's a
it's up.
potential conflict of interest.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's
And
got to
if
be
the
in there.
Environment Agency are doing the report, do you happen to
No,
know if
no,
the Environment
no,
Agency will do the report and pay for it themselves?
I mean, well, I think we're doing some flood modelling, yeah, I'd have to check that.
So can we look at all the bits on the flood
I
modelling?
made a note of that.
Thank you.
Is it going to be possible to look at where you're getting your modelling from as well? Because
I'm
I
told
work
it's,
with modelling and
I'm told it's this big company that does all the.
just because they're a big company doesn't mean they're good.
I don't commission those services, unfortunately.
I can tell you that, having read that before in sleep many times, and to go back to it, there's some other people around here already. The statements in here, one part of the document, they're completely, they're contradicted at another part of the document.
Exactly what I'm trying to say.
And like I say, I've got copies of this. I think
They're coming in March, you can have that conversation with them.
but yeah, should it be, if you have a look at what this company has already done for Isle of Wight Council,
It's John Ball Associates, JBA's John Ball Associates.
Yeah.
they seem to just get, if something needs to get written, straight through to them, no process,
Yeah, there is a process.
no evaluation, no bidding, no tender process, nothing like that. They just must be either on a preferred supplier of framework
I can find
agreement,
that out, I can find that out.
or
Well, no, we have the person here, Ms Spencer. How were these people appointed?
You don't know,
Well,
would you?
for the Isle of Wight Council, I
You
put
would
them
comment.
that's from the other way.
That's from the Isle of Wight
They do
Council,
the
sorry.
section 19 report, but for us,
Yes,
it would be
the
a framework provider.
I can find out about the procurement, absolutely.
It does seem a bit odd
There will be
to
a
have
procurement
the
process.
same company working for two conflicting sides.
I can't answer for the environment agency while they're using them, I have no idea.
No, well,
No, we
why
wouldn't
we
use
use
J- we
them.
probably wouldn't use JBA for modelling.
No?
Sorry?
We
So
probably
if-
wouldn't use JBA
just-
for modelling.
For your modelling, obviously you're going to have certain criteria. Will you share that with us, the
I
criteria
would
you use?
imagine that's what the report will do, yeah. I
Because
don't know,
the,
because I don't.
yeah, the criteria is really important.
I will ask that question. I will ask that question.
Can we go back to the, because obviously Vicky will speak at some point and then we can have questions after that, if that's all right. So I put in there, section 19, we need to start looking at that and making sure things are done, for example. So I'm going to put that down. Anybody else want anything on there?
Especially with the gap between meetings and where we've got to already 3 months on. Sorry, Jason, local resident, Jason Jeppard, Strand. Is knowing what the planned response for any future event is as of today, given that what happened before wasn't necessarily as per plan, and I've not seen that kind of already documented by anyone. People say, oh yes, each time all of the boards will be put in, for example, but no one's actually, as far as I know, from the Environment Agency confirmed that is what they're doing. So can we have confirmed what is the response plan? Because we'll be waiting till March, or which time most of the bad weather will be beyond us.
So because I've got us doing a flood plan, and I think that can lead into that as well. So a response from the flood plan from the stakeholders.
But we needing to get that, just confirmation that it shouldn't be difficult to get all of that.
Okay. I think Vicky, you'll touch on that anyway, won't you?
What's that?
What we do with the gates and stuff from now on. Yeah. Yeah. We'll get something.
And feeding into that is the communication of a future response. So the events that we've had recently, like the last time you put a posting on, Karen put a posting on the Floods Facebook group about drains, gullies are cleared, what have you. But it's all a bit, I'm not suggesting that you're not doing something, but I'm saying you're not actually the responsible agency. So can the Environment Agency or Southern and Island Roads confirm what is in place ahead of a potential flood?
I think they're getting better. I know Southern Water. Have you been getting the Southern Water ones? So maybe we need to look at that scrutiny.
But I mean like a specific thing of like on the flood group, if you're on the flood group on the Facebook page, then there's a flurry and the messenger. Then there's a flurry of kind of concerned comments from people. Oh, the floodgates on, and actually at the moment the only way of knowing is to go around there and check the floodgates. No, but listen.
Maybe we should be
I'm just
told
saying,
by
wouldn't it be
somebody.
simple for the Environment Agency, for example, to update a web page or somewhere so that we could go and look or disseminate? You wouldn't be able to do that.
I mean, what we
I'm
do.
suggesting that you have to do that anyway, so can't we trigger something to let the residents in the area know? And then save all of the
Yeah, I know you
flurry
let
of concern.
Darren see now, don't you?
And the flood warning, obviously we've got duty officers who would issue flood warnings, and in those flood warnings are certain messages. So what I could ask is if we issue a flood warning for Monckton Mead in terms of if it gets to the 2.75 trigger point, there might be some way, I'll ask the question, of that flood warning in the narrative saying the boards at Monckton Mead will be deployed. But that, I mean, I have to ask that question, I'm not a flood warning duty officer. But we can change the text, so it could be, but that, we don't have a flood warning just for Monckton Mead, Brookend, it's the whole of the Monckton Mead. But I'll ask the question.
I think at one time, I think it was Carol, you shared some information, or someone shared some information explaining, and I don't know where it came from, that there was a piece of text that was shared saying that the Environment Agency had done such and such, and such and such, and I thought, well, that's good.
It came to me as an email after I had the flood warning.
Yeah,
I don't know why it
part
came.
of that message as a flood warning. So I can ask that department if there's something that we can do, because what we do say on flood alerts or flood warnings is deploy your property protection now if you have it. So if we can do that on these cows warning, which I got changed for that, there might be something that we can do depending on the trigger point to just update people who have signed up.
Maybe I was looking at it from this perspective. The Environment Agency got the ball last time. Wouldn't it be a good PR thing anyway for you and the Environment Agency to kind of get the residents back on side to say, you've done this effort, why don't you just communicate it to us?
I can check to make sure that we can change the wording. I I don't know what the wording says at the moment, so I'll have to check that and just see if we can get that included so that then you will know the boards are in and want to meet.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then separately as a club, we could decide that, you know, a number of people could share.
But leading on from that.
Can I just take, he was waiting for me.
Right, you just made some brilliant points. The reason, apart from people from the agencies, we're all here in this room is because we are not satisfied with what happened to our properties and our lives. And the other reason is because we never want it to happen again. Now, it's quite evident just listening to employees, residents, whatever we want to call ourselves, there's an awful lot of talent in this room that can organise just that. And that's the thinking behind Karen setting the group up. We can't have a group that's so big it's ineffective. We're looking for a small and highly effective group with a lot of skills to organise the local community. Now, I understand you're representing an agency and you're going to take some flack. That's
So not me.
well.
I'm an Isle of Wight councillor. I'm an Isle of Wight councillor with Karen.
Well, thank you for revealing that. No, but that we know because of the sheer scale of what you're faced with across the British Isles, that the Isle of Wight, Moncton Mead area is just a tiny part of that, and that's why we're setting up the group, because you've just expressed the fact that there are certain limitations to what you can do to help us prevent this ever happening again. There is plenty we can do, and that's why we're setting this group up. And it's very early. You know, here we are, there's lots of good ideas coming off the floor, there's lots of what is. One of my key beliefs, and I've said this to Karen, is that we're really working in two parts here. We're going to pursue what happened, there's no doubt about that. But we have to build relationships with these people. We have to provide a focus, because they can't take 60 phone calls from 60 anxious people. We will set up an effective group. We will discuss what we need to do ourselves, how everyone is informed, how everyone is communicated with and kept in the loop, and it will start tonight. That's all I wanted to say.
Well said. Well, just following on from that, Pete, is Vicky's here. Sorry, Colin Armour again. Vicky cannot admit that the resources for the Environment Agency is stretched. It's manifested the problems which led to the issues that all of us here face. If we take on that responsibility as a group, we have to accept that we're taking it. They're not abdicating their responsibility, but in part we're doing that. Is that what we're looking at?
No,
I just wanted to clarify that point.
no.
Okay. Like I said,
It's just what we can do to be
Ours is in
working
addition,
together, yeah.
in addition.
Yeah, in addition to
theirs.
it, yeah.
okay.
Can I just make a point as well? We've got an emergency planning officer in the Isle of Wight. So that was an emergency, you know.
Emergency planning department.
No, there's an emergency planning officer.
Yeah, they were working that day, they were down here with me.
But who was it?
So that's
They
they're
don't.
missing in doing the job that we're trying to do.
No.
Well, they should be
No,
doing.
no, they work really hard. There's three
I've
of
got
them.
no doubt they work really hard.
There's three of them, and they talk to all the other stakeholders. So they talk to Environment Agency, to the fire, to police. So like people getting taken out of their cars because they were floated down the road, etc. They don't necessarily come out to site, but they did come out to site that day with me.
But they would have had the very word is emergency planning.
Yeah, but what
So-
happened
so
that
we-
day
if we
was
don't know
just to
what
put
the
it in
plan is.
perspective, I'm so sorry to put this point across, it was a rapid onset. It was not predicted the amount of rain that came. We knew rain was coming, but we didn't know that amount of rain was coming. If there'd been 3 days before, there were plans, very well rehearsed plans to deal with that, but we were caught unawares about that
So
time.
what are they doing to kind of remodel their planning?
Sorry.
So as we say, you know, if they've got a plan and the plan didn't work, obviously they've got to put
It's not that it didn't work, they didn't know it was coming.
Okay, then so they didn't foretell what the problems were. They've got to do some planning about
They
what is
do
actually.
lots of planning.
Yeah, I've kind of
Carry on.
worked in that department, so that's why I'm asking.
They're very hard working, and I'm
I've got no doubt.
to help those two.
But
those
the
three
plan
people.
didn't work.
It was a rapid onset. It wasn't a
However, you
planned one.
planned also to do
No,
that.
we can't defend that sorry to use the
And
phrase.
also,
It was screwed up, it went wrong. We can't say these people.
I'm just saying,
are
the
just
emergency
working
plan. I'm
hard.
sorry,
Well
Dan.
done.
I'm going to disagree
Well
about this.
then we're not going to get anywhere because
Emergency
it's
plan. Can
screwed
you,
up.
Keith, can you explain what emergency
It's
planning
screwed
do?
up. It was.
Yes, agreed, Dan, but this is not what we're here for tonight, to thump the table and give these two people a hard
But we
time.
can't sweep
We're
our
here to
things
set up
away.
the
If
group.
it's a
We know,
point, we've got to
we know that they knew that the water was rising in the brook to unacceptable levels by 4 o'clock in
And
the
that's
afternoon.
not-
We've
that's
got
not emergency
4 o'clock in the
planning.
morning, we've got the figures, we've got the graphs. But that's not what I'm here for tonight, and I do understand your point of view. I'd cite the fact to you that the National Audit Commission said of the Environment Agency in November they were failing to fully maintain existing flood defences, let alone build the 2,000 new ones promised by ministers in 2020. They're investigating how an £8 million flood defence scheme installed in 2017 failed to protect homes and businesses in October, leading to substantial flooding in the north. We know you're under pressure, but the point of this meeting is, if you like, to take some responsibility into our own hands to make sure this never happens again, which is why I don't want to spend time listening to people looking back. I'm sorry to be so direct,
No, but that's
but we
okay.
need to sort ourselves out.
But what I
But
would,
we all can
Dan,
have our
what I
own
would-
opinion
I
about
just want
what
to
we
bring
think
Keith in. I'm
should.
sorry.
Surely,
I'm sorry.
I
Can I bring
agree.
Keith in?
And I respect yours.
You know we agree.
I just want to bring Keith in about what emergency planning do and how these guys work with them.
But yeah, they do an awful lot, and I think in order for this group to be constructive and progressive, almost we need to have a kind of terms of reference and an overall objective, which I think this gentleman summed up quite nicely. So I think the more progressive action would be maybe to get some support from the emergency planning department in getting an emergency plan from the area, because I think
That's happening. That's already
yeah,
happened.
so I think maybe our interagency or invite one of the individuals to this meeting to assist in the things that we might not have thought of if we want to take steps to protect our properties ourselves. But going back to the point, I think this group almost needs to have in a sentence what is the overall objective, and if it's to make sure this doesn't happen again, then we link all our actions back to that statement to say that's what we're here to do. So, in one sense, yeah, we do need to look in the rearview mirror about what happened so we can learn from it and improve. But then going forward, all our actions kind of need to lead back to that. Oh, thank you. Sorry. Cool. Thank you.
Yes, well said.
I'm sorry, Ryan.
Sorry.
Who's the man on the stage last time?
Sorry.
Again, still
Alright.
So you don't expect different tonight.
So for the notes, could we have the full name, Keith, and position with Southern Water?
Because it's for the minutes. We have
Okay.
minutes now.
Please.
Southern Water, keep that.
Yeah.
Sorry, I didn't hear that, Keith.
Herbert.
And the position, Keith?
Ex-area manager, working on storm overflows now, so
Ex-area
ex-area manager, so
Sorry to hear
supporting,
that, Keith.
supporting
Whether that's a blessing or a curse, I don't know. But,
What's your title? Pathfinder lead, so something completely different. Yeah.
You can talk about that anyway. We can talk about the floods, aren't we?
but there is a link that pays to the quartet to move forward. If you want to move forward, then it comes down to the government grant, which is flood resilience.
Yeah.
And that is linked immediately, which is individuals we can do. We're 5 civilians are doing it, but there is a huge issue in this area, and perhaps we should have the guy here who's in charge of this, which is Lee Byrne, he isn't. But if we want to put in the flood resilience measures that we want, that has to go through planning. Now, Neil Young's great signifier for all this, it's not the Neil Young. Neil has said, I'm okay with it, it's fine, you can put in what you want within reasonable measures. However, Lee wants to look at it and go through. So whatever we may want to do as individuals,
Is that because you're listed buildings?
we're in, no, it goes further than that. We are a listed building, but a conservation area has in this area, it's a section which effectively every building in the Monkton area, the conservation area, is effectively a listed building. So whatever view that you want to take, the lady here is disagreeing.
How many properties around here are listed buildings?
There's very few
Quite a
that
lot of them
are.
is Strand and.
There's very,
Street there.
just bear with me, there are very few that are, but the conservation area that we're in has a further protection, I forget what it's called.
Like Article 4.
Yes, so it effectively means that we still have to go for planning permission. Realistic, that 1 to 8 are, the others along the way are, but nevertheless they still have to go for planning permission for flood resilience. Now,
Would that be just the plans that we make, like notifying people or anything like that? That would have to go through the process.
no, it's effectively the physical work, because we're
Yeah.
So what I'll do is I'll get that on our work plan, and we need to get a document so everybody understands what needs
Yes.
to happen, yeah.
So, Lee Byrner's the guy to speak
Yeah.
to about this, and I've only done emails, seems a reasonable chap. Neil Young's right for it, he's a flood site.
And then,
Yeah, so that's where people can't just go ahead and put in flood barriers. That's not there.
I've also completed a project in East Cowes for 34 properties, and 7 of those were listed. So I've got a sort of little bit of an idea. So if anyone wants any support,
Oh, that would be perfect, Vicky, if you could do that, please, that'd be
I'm also
fantastic.
just doing some more properties in East Cowes and some up in People's Place and Western.
So that's a positive move, which Pete was talking about. So as individuals, we can move as a group and so collectively move
And it's all about the different kinds of, for example, the self-closing air bricks. That
Yes,
you
we've got
provide,
11
all
of
the
those
plastic ones, you
going
don't want the metal garland over the top. So I do have quite a lot of information on what measures you can put into the house.
what Pete
That's
said.
slowly.
Yeah.
Thank you, Vicky, that's
And that's
appreciated,
been
yeah.
passed by Lee.
Yeah, I'm right. The Esplanade in East Cowes.
So that's moving forward.
Oh, yeah, Karen's got.
Karen's got it, so that's moving forward.
Yeah,
We'll be okay.
I can help.
so this is all good stuff now, that we can make a plan and make sure everybody's.
Well, this is
informed.
individuals being able to look after their own property.
The other thing I can help with as well is we use a surveyor, to do all of our surveys on properties for PFR. So there's a minimum property flood resilience. So there's a minimum that we protect to, which is 600 mil. So that could include self-closing air bricks. It could include waterproofing the side of the building, flood doors or flood barriers, whichever is preferable. So it will protect up to 600 mil. So it might be worth me sort of sharing maybe a report with you so you can see what that looks like. Because there's apertures and things that need sealing, because of where the water can get in. Some pumps.
You've got the,
So
got
lots
the
of
minute
measures that need to
hand.
come together to
Yeah.
protect the property. It's not just there's one flood door or self-closing air bricks. It needs to be around the house 600 mil.
You can't say it's called flood resilience, not flood protection.
We call it PFR, flood resilience. So
You can't say it's not going to be flooded, you can't guarantee that.
some people call it coastal level protection. There's all different ways, but that's what I do with the environment agency.
So
That's why I'm-
you've had a connection with Lee,
Yeah.
so that's worked, and maybe those of us affected in this area can take something from that and move forward. With the issue for the £5,000 resilience grant,
Yeah.
which is going to go through, and then that's a connection with people brought forward.
Yeah, and we've got that
Is
on
that
there.
right, Pete? Are we getting to that?
That's a great idea,
No, let's not have the mutual aspiration society.
Anybody else got any other ideas? I mean, it's all going, we can check, we can add things and talk about stuff all the time, but it's really important that everybody knows which direction we're going.
Great things to share on the website.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
I think for us to
Everything I get, I'll put on the website.
For me anyway, unless I'm losing the plot here, to mitigate the impacts of flooding in the Monkton Mead area of Ryde, Okay, so that's the main aim. We have to know what's in place and what the procedures should be.
Yeah, we've got that down on the work plan.
Right.
Get all of that, yeah.
Okay, now we then go down to saying influence decision makers. Who are the decision makers and who are ultimately responsible for everything that goes on? Who is it we're trying to influence? Can we not get some clarity on saying, are the Isle of Wight Council ultimately responsible for ensuring your organisation do your job and your organisation do your job?
No.
Who is ultimately responsible?
Multiple
So we can
It's a
then,
multi-agency approach, so the local resilience forum, would it be? That helps? Yeah,
Give you a
please.
rundown. So, Southern Water's responsible for foul combined some of the surface water system. The Environment Agency is responsible for groundwater flooding and river flooding. Main river, yeah. Ordinary water courses are responsible of combination of the Isle of Wight Council and the landowner, their responsibilities. And the highway network is responsibility of the Isle of Wight Council. And then overarching all of that, not necessarily an enforcement role, but to ensure there's collaboration, is the lead local flood authority, which is the Isle of Wight Council. So,
Which I put at the front, basically I put this at the front of the terms of reference for one of those stakeholders.
which is why things like this meeting is really, really important, because maybe about 30 years ago it would have just been the drainage board would have done it, or the borough council would have done all of it, and then they would have controlled all of that. Now with all these separate agencies, it's really important to kind of work together because there's just so many moving parts. And the Section 19 report gives the lead local flood authority statutory powers to say that I want to know who flooded, I want to know were your pumping stations working. They can request anything from us, and they have. So the agencies will give all their information, all their reports feeding into the Section 19 report, which will effectively give you everything you want. So the local authorities.
I don't think you were here at the time, but they're coming, the people that are doing the Section 19 report in March as well, so you know.
So maybe one of the things this group wants to do is make sure that the content that they want in that Section 19 report is in there, because it's being written at the moment. So some questions for the individuals from the consultancy doing the work who are independent. That'd be a good ask and maybe a good outcome to make sure that the outcome that you want to see is there.
So basically, I was told today about 150 people from Ryde were in that. It'd be nice to get involved in that.
Could I just interject there with what Keith said? We as individuals, under the Freedom of Information Act, can ask the Environment Agency, which I have asked, requested, for a copy of the written flood defence mechanism in place at home to me. I've asked for transcripts of all communications relating to the flood warning and the floods, including notes of phone calls, memos, emails, notes of discussions, written and verbal instructions. And the final one has the place of the flood boards during the flood warning being contracted out to a third party. That was sent, and I'll pass a copy of this to Vicky, on the 8th of November. Not had a response, sent a reminder on the 8th of January. Bearing in mind this is under the Freedom of Information Act, not had a response. The Environment Agency, which is a government body, is an affected person. You'll have a copy of this. Yeah, but this, notwithstanding what you say, is the follow-up, the Section 19. Answers should be in place now. We found out from government agencies the situations. I'm not going to bring up what's in the news currently. That's unacceptable. This is a legal requirement, and the Environment Agency failed. Now I'm speaking as an individual, but on behalf of all the people here. Those answers, those questions need to be answered.
Yeah, and I think you'll get a lot of what you want through that report, but the point in the
Sorry, that is not the point that I'm making. Why haven't I been given a response?
I can't answer that, but I think
May I just say?
just one more thing. So, I mean, you've got an email, all these agencies who are willing to help.
Let me finish. Just
Yeah.
Thanks to our
Sorry, Kate.
I'm Neil here, also a Cillian Street victim.
Mr. Seeley has obtained a copy of the Monkton Mead operational procedures, although it says brackets part, which details exactly how the Monkton Mead flood defences should be set and operated. And a very confusing document it is.
What about contemporaneous notes and conversations?
Not yet, no, but this is something that we will make available to all residents so you can see what it is we can address to the Environment Agency about the contradictions and nonsenses in here. For instance, some of us are saying, well, why weren't the logs put in at the far end of the wreck? And the answer is because it says in this Monkton Mead operational procedure that they're not to be put in because the surface water running down West Hill Road has to escape to the recreation ground, not go down the path of the recreation ground, but turn left into it. So they don't put the logs there in case they cut the properties in West Hill Road until water actually begins to mount into the recreation ground. I won't go into it anymore.
No, thank you.
Keith point, there's an awful lot of information. This is a printout from the internet from Ireland Roads, which specifies what Keith has just so kindly been through as to whose responsibility it is for which aspect of, if you like, the water systems of the Isle of Wight. Both of these can go up on the website of the group, so they're available to everyone. And if you want to take a copy, we'll organise that as well.
I guess
Sorry to interrupt.
It's fine. Yeah, in response to the gentleman's point, you know, we're here to kind of be a conduit through the organisations which, you know, with the best will in the world, people are dissatisfied with. So if you're dissatisfied about this particular aspect of it, we're here to help. So if there's an outstanding freedom of information request, more than sure we would help chase that up. So that's why we're here.
We just need a copy of your.
No, this is it for you.
Oh, can I
You
have
can
that?
say that.
I'll just check that. Did you send by email or by post?
One first request by email, that was to the local and 7 people copied in. And the second was a letter to Hampshire Environment Agency as well.
I think there's a point here that's just been made as well, sorry Jason, that you've just said that the responsibility of surface water is with the Environment Agency. No? Sorry, what was your...
That's Southern Water.
Right,
No,
what we know
Like
is...
council.
Okay, no, sorry.
Yeah.
What we also know was from when the Environment Agency were here at the previous meeting, is they said they didn't put the boards in because of surface water, potential threat of surface water. However, it's not their responsibility, surface water. Their responsibility is for the river. And so we have, you know, for me, there's very definite questions. Before we can move on, is if not then that the board should be put in, when should they be put in? So if not at that point, we need to kind of understand what sort of tidal wave or tsunami do we need coming down the hill for them to be put in place? Sorry, no, Karai, just finish my point. Sorry, I'm waffling the touch.
I know I was going to agree with you, but since then, they've implemented every single time there has been a hint of a flood or a hint of a deluge of rain, though all 6 boards have gone in on both sides of that road.
So there are other elements of this which I want to share, and sorry if it's the wrong forum and I'm talking too much, but maybe, you know, like having some counselling. I phoned up to speak to the Environment Agency about what that process was and got nowhere. Nobody's really telling me what should have happened. So I then spoke to the subcontractor who was the ones who were ordered to put the boards in and tried to speak to the relevant director. He wouldn't speak to me, but got the Environment Agency to phone me back and tell me that I was being aggressive and they're not going to talk to me. Well, I'm saying I just want to know. We want to know what was issued to the subcontractor, what their instruction was. The subcontractor wouldn't speak to me, but would go back to the Environment Agency to say, can you get this guy to stop phoning me? And that's exactly what the Environment Agency did, tried to apply pressure to me to stop asking difficult questions. Now I know somebody else in this room has had a similar experience with another body asking difficult questions. You know, bordering on, you shouldn't be doing this, you know, we may have to take action. So we need to understand the terrain that we're working with here. And when we have sort of bold things like influence decision makers, Who are the decision makers? What's the process? Who's ultimately in charge? And if we can work backwards from that to say this
I
is
think
the
we
structure.
just answered that. Nobody's ultimately in charge.
That's in the example that you
Well, if we
gave.
know what the structure was, and
Yeah,
what should
so-
have happened, we can see what went wrong.
But
And
That
then
happened
we
in the
improve.
report.
But
Like I
if we
said,
can't get visibility, we can't do that.
I mean, that kind of relates to what I asked earlier though, which is in the interim while we're waiting for this report, can we not have confirmation from the relevant agencies about what their response would be? Which you've tried to obtain unsuccessfully, but why can we not request that?
I'll work on that.
Well, we have, yeah. I mean, this gentleman has just asked for it, and under freedom of information, which is what, 30 days?
That's what I'm saying, is practically, why can't someone just tell us what their plan would
Well,
be?
just let's take a step. Just let's take a step forward and a step back. Each step. Ultimately, we're alone for each individual property. We've got the government thing, and there are issues there that we've got to deal with. The Environment Agency admitted that the boards weren't in there, so we can move forward on that to a certain extent. I don't think within the time frame that within this meeting, or even moving a few months before, moving a few months forward, we are going to get the answers.
No, I'm not talking about that, you're directing that at me, I'm just.
No, I'm not directing you.
If
I'm
someone broke
directing
into
you.
your house.
What I'm saying is I'm
Well,
directing
it's just let Jason talk.
So what I'm trying to demonstrate is that when something happens, we don't carry on the way we were, and the Environment Agency haven't, because we've observed that all 6 boards have been put in place. So clearly they've made a decision somewhere. I'm just saying, no
That-
one
that
has
decision was-
communicated it back to the residents about what that decision is.
We decided it at the last meeting.
So
didn't we?
there's, well, when you say decided, who documented that this is now the way forward, and how is it communicated? Which is, I'm just repeating myself from earlier. And if it's so simple and it's all been decided, why can't someone tell us that now?
Well said.
And then we can move forward.
Well said.
So I think Vicky will give you that update when we get to Vicky's bit.
Right.
Okay. So we've got. Should we move on now? So sorry. So I've touched on the website and contacts. We've got some details, some forms here. If people want to give us their contact details, we'll put the GDPR stuff on it. Okay. So that will be held in a responsible way and only by the committee. So we've done the flood defence grants. We've already done that bit. So that will be on every meeting, I think, to make sure everybody gets what they need from that. We've done the Section 19 report, so they will be at our next meeting to go through that with us.
Can I just add a thing? People talk about the Section 19 report. There was a Section 19 report completed in 22, and as a result of that, there were recommendations made. Can someone confirm what the status is of those recommendations?
You've got.
Not necessarily now, but
Yeah.
can that be?
I've got it in the car, so we'll do that. We'll revisit the committee. We'll have a look at that. We'll do that definitely.
Do you want a copy, Jason? Have you seen it?
I've got a copy of the.
Has anyone got a copy of that?
Sorry, I haven't got a copy of the confirmation. Sorry, were you saying?
I've got one in my car if anybody wants.
Could I have a copy, please?
Yeah,
I can send it to you. I've got it all.
Okay,
What I'll do is again put it on the website. Okay. We download it. You can download it from there. Everything. I'll do it as a PDF. Yeah. Just download it again. So section 19.
I mean, if you're going to do a Section 19 review again, it would be useful to know that the Section 19 review completed a year and a half
I think
ago.
they're using this one as a basis and they're going to do it and then
No. But what I'm saying is, before you go forward and do the same thing again, surely you want to know that the thing you did before, someone implemented the recommendations, or otherwise we're just doing a report which is going to sit on the shelf and no one will know whether the recommendations have been implemented.
You work
Some
for
of them were
section
due to
19,
be
don't you?
done within a year, and that had already passed when we got flooded again. And I've no information.
Surface water last
It doesn't matter. What I'm pointing out is that recommendations were made in April 2022, and in October 2023, so a year and a half later, we are none the wiser as to whether any of those recommendations have been completed. One of them was to look at how to manage the surface water aspect, and I've no idea what the information is or what the conclusion is.
I'll give an
I think a
update.
lot of them
I
were.
think Jason's just raised a perfect thing this group should get involved in. What happened to this? You know, it's all
I didn't
about
know
the
that.
recommendations.
Could we have a show of hands? Who
What
knew
have they
about
done
that?
about?
I'll make sure it's on the website.
No, but could we have a show of hands? Who knew about that report?
Oh, it's available online.
Yeah, I have shared
I
with
knew
other people.
after because of this blood group, and I used to be quite involved in the previous incarnation, just going back to 2010, and I didn't even know about this because COVID happened and everything went quiet.
I think to be aware of as well, Colin, is that was reporting on floods in July and August.
Yeah.
This is not just a winter event. You know?
Oh, here it is, recommendations, okay. So we're looking for this, so the flood resilience scheme, 1 to 5 years. Community flood resilience, 1 year, I don't know where that is. Understand the impacts of Simeon Street recreation on surface water risk.
This is a key, and it should be completed within a year. And that is what led to the option of putting only 2 boards in, which is possibly why we flooded this time. And yet that is, we don't actually know what the planned response was based on that recommendation from 2022.
And then we got distillate water drainage, but Keith, you can go through that, that's what you're doing at the moment, isn't it? 1 to 5 years. Upgrading sewer capacity, that's a long-term strategic game. Improving asset maintenance, that's Island Roads and Southern Water. Again, Island Roads didn't come today. Alterations of, that's a really important one. Alterations of curb levels. I know one in East Street was done. Wasn't it outside Mountain Arts? Was that changed?
No.
Still the same?
There's a top, yeah, I don't know if they've done the academy.
So they were looking at that, weren't they? So we need to chase that through. And the last one is the SUDS measurements, which is 1 to 5 years, but you're working on those.
What is that? I don't know these agreements.
So we're going to go through that. So what's it stand for? Sustainable.
urban drainage. I'll talk about it in a minute. We'll talk about it in a minute.
Yeah. I think that's really important, that whatever committee we have, we need to. So now we're going to do some updates. So Southern Water first?
Yeah, okay, I'll probably update on sustainable drainage first. So, in order to get to the root cause of the problem, you need to ask why about 5 times. So, and if you do that in this instance, you eventually get it rained. We can't control that. But the penultimate why is really there's a huge amount of impermeable area in the catchment. By impermeable area, I mean roads, driveways, roofs, etc. Runs off and ends up hitting it. So I think if you look at the dimensions of this room, it's about, just looks at probably about 5 times 10 metres, so that's 50 metres squared. So just this room, the roof, if we've got 5 mil of rain, that's 1/4 of a tonne. If we get 10 mil of rain, that is 1/2 a tonne, just to kind of give you an idea of the quantum problem. So I think to just expand on this gentleman's point about whether it's surface water, what the EA doing with surface water, you know, they're in the unenviable position where they had surface water versus river water, and I would, you know, we have to service Island Roads as gullies coming into our system. I would love not to have to do that because it creates us problems, but if we block them up, we'd be negligible because it would flood properties. You know, all of the things are interlinked and all dealing with a huge amount of flow. And in an ideal world, you'd have one agency that does all of it. So, you know, why we all have to work together? Anyway, I digress. So what we're looking to do with the Isle of Wight Council is have sustainable drainage. So what that means is systems that almost replicate the land that was there before it. So rather than have the water raced off the road, raced off the driveway into the highway gullies into our system, or just cause the flooding that you saw in like West Hall Road, which is like a river, we put in things like rain gardens where the water soaks into a big tank underground, or swales, which are effectively just a ditch by the side of the road, or tree pits which accept the water. So you know, it seems a bit Fisher Price, but if you install these things en masse, they have huge attenuation storage underneath. So that's what we're trying to do, is get a series of agreed designs where you look at an urban setting like West Hill Road or East Hill Road, and you say, well, if you could intercept that flow there with a rain garden, or you could put a tree pit there, or you go further up in the catchment where it's a little bit more rural, the water doesn't need to race down the bottom. It's gonna, so that's what we're working with with the Isle of Wight Council, and we're about a week or so away of signing a memorandum of understanding where we have a series of adopted designs and go out and install these things en masse. So that's one, because we're doing it for the purposes of storm overflow reduction, but as well as flooding applications as well. So that's what we're working on. And if you look at the recommendations of the previous Section 19 reports, it is to install sustainable urban drainage. And it's coming into law for new developments, but so any new development comes in, it has to be mandatory. And that's through the Section 3 of the Flooding Act. But we want to work with the Isle of Wight Council or anyone who's got large impermeable area to slow down that flow. Because we don't want water in our system. The EA doesn't want it hitting their rivers just like that. So that's what we're doing there. We've had an interagency meeting where we've kind of walked over the catchment, looked at some of the points of interest, and got a list of actions there. We've given all the data to the Section 19 report that we were asked for from the council. So all the instances of flooding, the maintenance of our systems, the operation of our systems during the flooding event. And then in terms of the people who have reported flooding to us, we are case managing each customer, but also investigating the root cause of that, which is most likely going to be hydraulic overload. And when that happens, it ends up on our internal flooding register, and it sits there awaiting a capital scheme. Heart of hearts, I can't see it attracting a capital scheme given the number of properties, and that's one of the frustrating things about the Isle of Wight, is that all the big companies and agencies use cold hard metrics to look at internal flooding cases of whether or not it has a big capacity increase, and we always lose out to areas like Portsmouth, Brighton, where you could get several thousand properties off the flooding register in a relatively small scheme. So, going back to the point that we've got here about influence decision makers, I think that's a really good bullet point to keep on there, to try and say, look, it can't keep happening, we need to do something. So my advice would be to keep that objective in there. I think that's pretty much everything to update from our side.
But just to explain, I mean, probably lots of people know this, but when you're talking about the water coming down, the water that comes down comes from 10 cubic, what is it, 10? It's a large area that feeds basically into...
It's a large area, yeah. It's a large catchment, yeah.
So if we could slow that down, that's going to make a huge...
But we know this, with Code City, we saw the massive tank put in at the bottom of East Hill Road. Are you saying when you did that wasn't enough, or are you saying you got it wrong? Not you, your organisation got it wrong. What we're saying that this is a continual process, and when we're here in 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, talking about the same thing, because it's the same thing as being said now by yourself, with utmost courtesy and respect to you, that I heard 10 years ago when they were thinking about putting that enormous tank in at the bottom of the road.
So don't it's actually a 1 million litre tank, which should mean that it would help stop flooding from the sewer network, which is what that feeds into, is it not?
Yeah.
For a rainfall event of up to 60 millimetres in 24 hours. Just so that you've got some figures to work with. It's a 1 million litre tank, 60 millimetres in 24 hours should be prevented.
The sustainable thing will help it not keep running down here.
But unless, I know people want to look forwards and not backwards, but if all the work that's historically been done by these different stakeholders and agencies, it may well be that what's happened before is good enough. It's just not being exercised correctly at any given time. So surely we've got to have a little bit of a post-mortem, and everybody's got to open their books a little bit here to say it shouldn't have happened this way. I challenged, I forgot, is it Keith, is he your boss, the guy who's
John,
sorry, about how much surface water wasn't held on the day, and after about a week or maybe 2 or 3 weeks, I calculated just with this little rough map, and I reckon it should have held 30,000 cubic metres of water. He agreed 2 or 3 weeks later that it should have held 32,700 cubic metres of water, but with only 2 planks in, they held about 10,000 cubic metres of water, and his exact words were, so that probably had an effect on the surface water elsewhere.
That's the river water we're talking about.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now,
The
if that didn't
conflict
happen,
between the surface water and the river water, that 2 different people are responsible, which is therefore they made a decision that they would leave the gates open to a certain amount to allow the surface water to come in.
Yeah.
Where in fact the river water was about to appear. So I'm not quite sure how those 2 waters were to operate together.
but so my point is that it could all be there. It could all work fine now. If all the agencies hold their hands up, we have optimum disclosure, which is clearly not going to happen, or else it should have happened already. The processes, which would then mean that the processes and procedures that are in place are not fit for purpose, if what we've got, if we used it correctly, would work for us. So it's either, historically what's happened has been poorly planned and not executed correctly, despite all the money, or it's more recently, to cope with what's happening, is poorly planned and not being executed correctly. We really do need to find out whether what all the agencies have done in the past was folly, or what happened on the day was whether somebody's made a mistake. Because otherwise we're just building on sand again, aren't we?
Or an alternative was the system that has a finite capacity at that capacity. And I think that from what I've seen with the tank and the storage and the sewers that we operate, the answer to that was yes. It had reached its capacity.
It was have reached its capacity because
22,000 cubic
metres
metres.
unloaded in the area. If they was, we don't know, do we?
Well, we know that 20,000 cubic metres of water dumped on these streets will have an effect.
In our homes.
But
we know that, right?
The assertion that the books aren't open, I don't accept that. And I
Well, they're
disagree with
not.
that.
Sorry. I disagree there. I've put in a Freedom of Information Act. That hasn't been registered. See, the Environment Agency in this instance are in breach of the statutory duty. Southern Water are not. So don't go down the route that information hasn't come out, because it hasn't. So that's clear. It's there, it's documented, that's not happening. What these people are saying is, I've just been told about information I'm not aware of. Some are saying the information isn't clear. So there is. One could say a cover-up.
Can I just make a point?
Yeah.
I've looked at the emails that you sent it to, and there might well be an email address to the Environment Agency, but I've not heard of that. Normally when FOIs come in our area, they filter down to the officers, and I haven't even seen it, so I don't know
That's a failure
if
of
it's
the
been
system.
logged. So I definitely will
That is a
forward it
failure
on,
of the
and
system,
I've
it's
given
not
you the
our
correct email.
Yeah, but that doesn't come up. So it's a failure. This is SSD inquiries at Environment Agency that go. That's not what comes up when you're asking about these. As an individual.
Does it come to me? Anyway, it doesn't matter, I'm just saying,
Yeah,
that
but-
might just be an oversight, and
I
will
mean-
get.
And if it's on the website, you'll get that resolved.
Yeah, of course, it'll come down to our.
Please do, but what the people are saying here, the questions have been asked and they're not being answered.
Is that this lovely lady in the back?
I just want to say, maybe I'm foolish, but it's become very clear to me that there is an environment agency who is concerned with the river water, and another group of people who are concerned with the surface water. And they made a decision on that night to prefer the concern about surface water over the river water by not putting in all the gates and preventing the surface water flowing into into the recreation line, because they assumed it would, but it couldn't have if the river water was coming in anyway. So I just think we have to ask ourselves, are we going to save ourselves from the river or from the surface water? In which case the future has to have better drainage management
I just want to be clear on this, because you're worried about the surface water once it comes into the wreck, right? No?
Just, this is about looking forward, so, I'm part of my update. Obviously, in light of the surface water, and then we've got the river water coming the other way, what we've done is our contractors next week, or the week after, depending on the window, where they'll be fitting sort of flat valves to the bottom of the drop boards. So what that will enable to do is, once the surface water piles up behind the boards will all go in, it'll always be a full complement now. We've got some flat valves in the bottom to let that surface water come through.
Come through against the water.
Yes. Well, yeah, but once that's locked, it's locked. It's
Well,
locked.
obviously,
It's a permanent
that's
thing.
gone away.
Yeah,
Then
no,
it'll
you won't be able to do
flow.
anything about that in that instance. But whilst it's, I mean, you've only got an hour before the water starts to fall anyway, so that will, in the event of the river level being still in the river, and the surface water coming up behind the water down West Hill Road, as it happened before when the previous flooding, that will still be able to go through.
Well, that's what we need to look at, the water coming down West Hill Road. I've only been here a short while, but since I've arrived, 3 or 4 bungalows up East Hill Road have all put concrete down on their gardens. And the water just flows straight down into the West Hill Road houses. People are not being too good about enabling water to sink into their gardens at all. But I think the drainage needs to concern itself with the water coming down from most of these suburbs, which would not have been built when the Victorians put in this area.
What we're hoping is the flat valves in the bottom of the drop boards will enable that surface water to escape onto the wreck.
If the surface water accesses on the road, but if you look at the geography, particularly at the bottom of Park Road, because the water comes down West Hill, goes down Park, and into the wreck space, it has in front of it a smooth concrete path, and to the right a lower grass verge. How do we expect it to turn left and beat open a board and go into the wreck? I mean, has anyone looked at the geography, or is this just been done? And I have another question for you. Southern Water, Keith, have sensors on their own pumping stations at Simeon Street and Ashford. These will alarm when the sewers, which are integral to your system, are about to surcharge to the river. Surface water drainage into the brook is impeded once the river level reaches 1.9 AOD above ordnance datum. It reached 1.9 on the night of the flood, and I know I'm looking back, at 2:30 in the morning before the flood. You had sensors. You knew this was going to happen. And that will come out later, but we're here tonight to talk about the group.
Some of these questions which are being raised, because I kind of was in the same position with the last declaration of the flood group, I put together a question and answer law, which I shared. I don't know how much further that went, and I tried to indicate whether whose responsibility it fell under, whether it's Southern Water, Island Roads, etc. And so could I direct that to you if you've not received it? I don't know.
I'm not actually
because some of these things, they're just little questions and things in the back of people's mind that keep coming up, and until we've got an answer on them, it'll just keep coming up, and it'll be good to, and then it will be a more efficient way. I sent it to you.
Okay, I'll forward it through.
But I send it on.
My appraisal would be that the flooding issues here are so acute and so complex that there's just not one single agency with the responsibility that can solve it. It needs multi-agency. So, the river overflows, goes into the highway gullies, goes into people's houses, goes into our sewer. Very quickly, you've got 4 or 5 different agencies all with the responsibility to do it. So, it can't just be viewed as that's it. It doesn't work like that. Maybe in some smaller catchments where you've got a block gully or a block sewer or some riparian issues. Yeah, but here it's so complex. It needs a much bigger kind of joint agency solution to that.
Can I ask you a question then? This table you've got at the bottom, is there a trigger point where it then pushes out whatever excess has gone into it? And what is that trigger point? How frequently is that? Is it automated? Does somebody have to actually review a dial or whatever and then say, oh, we're going to pump this out.
Memory, so I don't have it. It just sits there empty until it gets a high storm event, and then it fills up, and then it returns itself back all automatically. And like and like the gentleman said, it's got telemetry. I can log it to my computer night and day and find out exactly what it's doing.
You found out for me the last time it was.
And again, it has a finite capacity. Once it's full, it doesn't provide any more.
Yeah, no, I get that, but for example, if we know that there's going to be an event, which, I mean, everybody knew there was going to be an event, right, to an extent, is there a process where the brook is pumped out as much as we can get out of the water at low tide? And, you know, is it as much water as we can possibly get rid of is got rid of? Does the same happen with your tank?
Well, it's empty now. You know, we go look at it, it's empty. You know, as soon
Okay.
as the rain.
But these are the questions,
Yeah.
right? If we know that there's going to be issues with water, let's get as much water out of the system as we possibly can. So we need to find out within these processes and procedures, does that happen? Did it happen?
And I think there's a big
You know,
overlap.
simple things like that, and then we move through to the next thing. That was right, Steve.
So I think there's a lot of overlap in the questions you're asking and the questions the consultants are asking of us as part of the Section 19 report. So hence why I think it will be a really good session when we get the consultants here to say, I'd really like you to include this. And I'm sure they will, because
So,
the questions that you just asked me is exactly the same questions they asked me.
Okay, so what we're saying at the moment is you guys don't really talk to each other, because that's what it sounds like to me. It sounds like you guys.
No, they do,
Okay, so here's a question for you then, and I know you're not going to have the answer to this. Who did your organisation speak to at Southern Water for you to make the decision we'll be more concerned about surface water than river water?
I don't know.
Okay, could you find that out?
But then, you know, we go
Is
back
that,
to your
would that be
challenge
okay
about-
for you to find that out?
Sorry, then we go back to your challenge about the resilience officers at the council, because when this all gets into quite a big incident like it does, the resilience officers at the council will hook a member of each of the agencies and run that incident, and then they will collaborate, whether or not it's on Teams or actually in County Hall. That is the objective of the kind of resilience and emergency planning part of the Isle of Wight Council, is almost to step in and say, look, this is really bad now. There's people, you know, that could potentially be trapped in their homes or whatever, people that need rehoming. That's their objective to do that, is take that almost strategic view of that. So the agencies do a lot of work on almost every level, whether it's on-site lifting covers and unblocking stuff, applying for funding, you know, collaboration, attending meetings like this, or at a strategic level, it all does happen.
Or not, as the case may be.
Well, but it didn't.
We failed to have the report on the Section 19 review that was completed and whether any of those recommendations were implemented or not implemented. And you mentioned about, I mean, can I just mention while we're on that subject, accountability, because you're saying about a multi-agency approach, which I agree with, but unless someone's accountable.
I'm so sorry.
So unless someone's actually accountable, it doesn't mean to say that individual agency is directly responsible, but someone needs to take some kind of lead, and I had presumed, probably incorrectly, that it was the lead local flood authority, and there's no representative from them here anyway.
Because I think they were coming last week, because I mapped it up, they'll come.
I mean, they should be able to answer, like, tomorrow, what's the status with these recommendations from the last Section 19? But I don't even know who these people are.
Just to raise a
They're
point,
not visible, they're not.
Can I ask you to be the gentleman that this lady?
It's Jackie.
Jackie,
Jackie.
sit there patiently.
I'm Jack Walton, very close. We were really lucky, we didn't actually get into our properties, we got into our footings, and several of the flats were this much off being flooded. If you can put something into boards to allow the water to go from the surface water into the red, why can't you do the same thing to the wall you put around our properties, which now causes us to flood?
I can certainly pass that on to the
Thanks very much. Because that's why we flooded, because you surrounded us
kept it
by
in
law.
there rather than allowing it to speak.
Sorry?
We kept the water on the wrong side.
It did, and the damage done to several of our vehicles was quite colossal. We're very lucky, the properties weren't damaged, but
Yeah, that's fine. I can
thanks
pass it
very
on to
much.
the-
That's just shut up.
Thanks very much, cool.
I think it's pretty clear that this could go on to 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, and it works out that we need kind of small working groups to get together and then feed back into these meetings rather than, well, a lot of us have got what should happen, but a lot of us have got some really good ideas, but it's really hard to bring it all over in one meeting like this. So we need
What road do you live in?
So Westfield Road.
The Westhill Road.
Bottom of, used to live there. Haven't for a while.
Right, so, sorry.
Can I just ask a quick question? Yeah, we weren't able to make the last meeting, so it's probably already been answered, but just listening to the comments going on, who is responsible for putting reports in?
Environment Agency.
It's the Environment Agency. You assign a team that are on the island, based on the island?
Yeah, so we have a framework provider who subcontract Western Landscaping to do all our incident response and maintenance.
Can I ask in the future that maybe 2 teams that respond rather than just
So
one?
it depends on the weather. So if we have a weather warning, then we would have 2 teams responding.
Sorry.
We would have 2 teams responding.
But there weren't 2 teams this time.
I can't answer.
Well, I know there were because we've been told so because they got stuck in Newbridge.
Oh, this was the October.
So, you know, the inside or 2 teams. And they
I think that will all come out in the section.
But can you suggest that in the future there are 2 teams responsible, one?
We had 3 teams on standby during, sorry, we had 3 teams on standby, so it was during last week, the week before, that Thursday night, I think we had, so.
Yeah.
We certainly have another
stuff
stuff.
over the lights, there's only 1 team, they've got stuff to do or Thank you.
Has anybody got any other questions before we go?
Sorry, I couldn't quite hear what you said then because it's sort of general buzzing conversation. Did you say you had 3 teams on standby?
No, what I was saying is that we do have enough staff to have 3 teams on standby, so it's possible that we can do that, that's what I'm saying.
And are you aware that the team involved looking back were pulled off when you?
I believe so, I mean, I wasn't on duty, so
No,
I
no,
haven't been involved in any of that.
not forcing back.
But this is why I was asking if you've got 3 teams, why did they have them?
Yeah, I don't know the answer to that.
Can you find out for us, please? Thank you.
Okay. So, let's see, I'm saying committee, yeah. So, are we gonna, so what I was suggesting for a committee is a couple of, so each street maybe 1 person, because there's not so many people in that street. The Strand a couple, Simeon Street a couple. Pete, you're gonna be on it, aren't you?
No, not
No?
necessarily. Can I just, you see, Karen and I sort of encountered one another. I'm standing up again, sorry. We encountered one another and she started putting this idea of a group past me and I said, well, the trouble with having a group with 50 people in is, you know, it's the old story about you design a mouse, you end up with an elephant. And so I said to her, what you need is an effective small group. Effective is the key word. You don't need 30 people on it. This is about information, communication, prevention. Looking back is something we can get to. I do believe that we've got to wait for these reports to come out, or we'll just be shot out the skies if we start to try and do anything concrete. So I'm looking forward here. I know I keep saying that. So we need a small group, and Karen suggested, well, how about a couple of representatives from each road? So then I said, well, which roads? Because I'm like that. And so really it's up for us here now to decide, is it a good idea to have a couple of people from each road, if you like, the road representative, a whole little group work to make sure we've got a website so you can go to it, you can find out about getting insurance if you're in a flooded area. There are schemes out there. Karen's found a wonderful website for the Northwest, who are much more heavily hit as a region than we are. I mean, sadly for us it's a big event, but on a national scale we're small here. We know this. She's found this wonderful site with all these resources where you can contact companies that deal specifically with insurance for flood. Now, our point is we've got to get it out. We've got to get it out to people like Jean. We've got to get it out to everyone in this room. So that would be not just the internet, it would be by paper. And in order to do that, we need to know who's involved. But we don't need 50 people to do it. So coming back to the original point, we need a small group of people. You tell us, well, not us, because I'm not in it, But tell the group how we organise that. Do we do it that way? Can anyone see a better model? We're open to suggestions.
What's your background?
I'm just a resident.
What's
You know,
the
I'm on
resident?
Sinian Street and I'm currently waiting for my kitchen floor to be put down.
Yeah.
Not bitter and twisted, no.
No.
Not such a fan. So how do we do that, folks? What do we, I mean, is the idea of a small group with a couple of representatives from each affected street a good one? Or can someone offer another model? I don't mind.
Can I just make an
Yes,
observation?
please.
I've been working with Seaview Council,
Oh, yeah.
Cambridge and East Cowes to do exactly what they're doing. So I don't know if you know of any of the clerks or the councillors, Karen, who have successfully set up a group to deal with exactly these things. They might be, you know, I'm not suggesting your way isn't right. It sounds very sensible.
No.
But I have done quite a lot of work with those who do. Bembridge is a good one. They're a good example of a flood action group. So it might be maybe engage with one of them.
So it's done through the. So I'm Isle of Wight Council for Bembridge, but I'm chair of the Corporate Scrutiny Committee in the Isle of Wight Council. So I'm a colleague of Karen's, basically, Joe Robertson. In Bembridge, so it's parish council led. Obviously, so that's one parish council covers the whole village. They've actually got a retired firefighter who is on the parish council, who I think is the lead councillor for that. So he's got a lot of knowledge. Obviously, the fire brigade used to do a lot of pumping out. But I have to say, 2.5 years ago, we had a big problem. We had a Section 19 flood report like you did. This time round, we didn't have any problem at all. So it's a very, very different situation. And we're working through a lot of small things. I think what you've got is a much more acute problem in this area with lots of houses. And Rye Town Council feels like too big, and they cover too much, a much wider area, don't they? So I think if you can replicate...
I don't want to take away from that core of...
No, I think if you can replicate what, say, a parish council would do in Bembridge for this area, the ward you represent, Karen, I think you're halfway there. And I think, Peter, is it? I mean, I think you've got to be involved, listening to you sitting here, you've got to be involved. Because,
It's up to the people in this room.
Well, hands up if you need
Yes, excellent. I have to ask you why. On that basis, I mean, Karen evolved this list. Monckton Street, the Strand, East Street. Consider this: Cornwall Street, Sinian Street, a business representative who could, of course, double for East Street or Monckton Street, and West Hill Road. I'm going to say.
And Mary Mead, yeah. So it's not on there, but Jackie said she.
Right. Do you think 2 people from each road, or would you be content with 1?
Well, sometimes, you know, we're going through to spring, summer, autumn, and with these meetings, some people might be on holiday, so it might be good to have 2 people from each road, so at least you get one turn up for each meeting if the other one's not there at that time, I think.
How about then the idea of having, because again, if you have a group of 15, you make it nothing, but about having a nominated reserve, someone who would be prepared to say, okay, you're going away, thing, I'll go to the meeting for you. Would that be okay? Is that an idea?
I've just got to say, we've got to really look at the makeup of the committee really well. Rather than just rushing through and saying, oh, let's put people in from each road in there, let's just look at people's skills as well.
Yeah, that's on our plan.
Rather, we could get representatives in the committees and then just call out a committee with different responsibilities.
Yes, that's vital.
Can I suggest that we come back to the main group every so many
Oh,
months
yeah.
to feedback what's going on?
Yeah, and I think it's so important, even though we're working in Indian, I think once every 2 months you should still come. That maybe should be so.
Yes, a key point for this is unless the group is seen to be effective, all interest will dwindle, and what just coming in. So it has to be effective. I keep using that word. So 1 person from each street with a backup, would that suit? Then the only way to do it then is to, in my mind, is to say, do we have any representatives here from Monckton Street?
Do you not think that you should consider the skills of history, knowledge, and then try and pluck it from that first? Wouldn't that be the?
I do, Dan, but if you're going to work by street, then if we selected the street and then selected the skills. I mean, I know where you live, obviously you know where I live. I want people who've got the best interest of their street.
You do skills first. These two gentlemen sound very knowledgeable.
They do.
You're very knowledgeable. And then Neil, in the background's got great skills.
Yes.
I know that Carol has got great historic knowledge.
Yes.
So you know, and I don't know everybody else, but I already know that you as a working unit would be highly effective. But you might all live on the same street. So.
Carol's the Strand.
Well, you see, that's another model, Karen. What Dan's suggesting, and it's a perfectly valid suggestion, is rather than street-based it, skill-based it. Which would you prefer?
I think the higher skill sets personally.
Yes.
And they may have skills if you don't know anything about it.
I'm very vocal, and other people may have got way more skills.
Sorry, I didn't quite catch your point. Say it again.
Should they wish
So a way forward, ladies and gentlemen, we can do it on a vote, a show of hands. Do we go for a street-based model or a skills-based model? Daniel's put very clearly the disadvantage of a street-based model, which is you may get someone very willing, who isn't, that word again, effective, and you may therefore exclude someone who is very effective, but happens to be the third or fourth person from that street. Should we go for the skills-based model or the street-based model? Right, so
Combination.
Hopefully, yes, hopefully we'll get one person highly skilled to get street. Sorry, I don't need
I just think we should just get the groups together first, and then have a chat amongst us who's got what skills from each road, and then we can look at it.
Right, skills are important.
It's much easier to have someone who's volunteering willingly, and they feel they've got skills, and then when we get together,
We've got to start somewhere.
We're going to start tonight then. I take your point. There's no one from Monkton Street. Is there someone from the Strand who thinks they've got skills and will be willing, apart from Carol? Can we elect Carol from the Strand? Done. East Street. Is there anyone from East Street? Anyone else? Just Julian? Julian, do you consider you've got the skills and are you willing?
Well, skills, not so sure of, but very willing.
Happy with that?
Yeah, very involved
Right.
on the day as well, helping.
Congratulations, Julian. Cornwall Street. Is there anyone from Cornwall? Okay, well I think
I
Cornwall.
think that can be fed from the Strand really.
Okay, Simeon. Well, no, there are people with skills, like Neil, you've got tremendous engineering skills. Yes, certainly. Excuse me, sorry, I'm going to be really harsh, going back to my own days a bit. Can we please just have one conversation? I'm so sorry.
Are you on the model where you have one person from each street? If you're doing that, and you're saying, oh, well, we'll have a little standby in case the other person, that person coming in who hasn't been to the other meetings will be somewhat in the dark, won't they?
Not if the group works effectively and spreads the information. There's no point in us. Yes, it's a good point. It is a good point.
I personally prefer the model of two. And they could actually work out between them as well then, their own schedule, whether they come, the other one will come. I just worry about gaps in the knowledge.
So basically, I'm just giving everybody one that wants to get involved, and then we'll work out who has.
Yes.
Ask who wants to get involved, and we'll see how many we've got.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I'm doing.
Just,
We'll get an
just
answer.
ask. Yeah, just ask them
You're going to help me
who
with
wants to
the,
be involved.
Who wants to be involved?
I'm just doing it. Sorry? Want to be
Hands up.
How many? Yeah.
2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Julian. Right, just hands up clearly. Carol, make a note of dates, please.
Right, Julian.
Surname, please.
They're filling forms out. They're filling forms out.
Yeah, no, this is for the committee.
Yeah.
We just want names for the committee.
Julian? LAX, LAX.
Got that?
Yeah.
Who's next, please? Colin? Colin Harvey. 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 H-A-R-M-I-C.
Yeah.
Martin Finch.
I wasn't going to get that wrong, was I?
Who else, please? Ladies? Julia Stratford Wright. Jacqueline Walton, we have Sue here. Anyone else? Neil? Neil, N-E-A-L.
Yeah.
Anderson. N-E-I-L. Anderson.
Yeah, oh yeah, yeah.
Carol Stark.
Pardon? Yes, they know we're going today. Okay. No.
She gets in touch with me, and then
That's who we've got so far.
Okay, it's like the Eurovision Song Contest. Our initial committee, thank you, is Julian, Colin, Martin, Julia, Jacqueline, Neil, Carol, who's also going to help with the business, Carol as well, who's going to be minute taker and so on, and myself. Anyone else wish to be involved, please?
Jason.
Can I make a comment?
Yes, please do, Jason.
There's two people that are not here who were previously very active in the
Okay.
group. One of them's not even a resident actually, but is aware of a lot of the information about how this scheme evolved and all sorts of other things. I think they'd be good to be.
He doesn't live in Oxford by any chance?
No, he lives locally, but just not in these streets.
Can I talk to you about that?
Yeah. So I just
Who are
wanted
those people?
Jan as
I
well,
wasn't
Jan.
going to
I've got a guy called Barry Arnold.
Oh yeah.
And Jan Johnson, who lives in the Strand.
Oh, that'd be great.
Yeah,
Directly
she's
opposite
got
where it keeps
sick.
coming.
question mark there.
Yeah. Sorry, I didn't know.
Margaret Beecham. Where's Margaret? Where do you live?
17 Mary Bay.
Yes.
Can I ask, are there going to be any other questions before?
Is there any other questions before we start going? You go on. So what you're saying is, can I ask a question?
Have you got Jason down?
Yeah, I've put Jason.
It's actually via one of the people who wasn't here, but they about mortgages and impact on people's mortgages from the flood impact. And I think it was mainly directed to the Environment Agency, which was providing the assurance on the level of risk protection that is in place, i.e. if it hasn't changed. If nothing's changed, in the words of Theresa May, then nothing's changed. So, confirmation that it's just the reason it was raised was because someone's property that they're in the process of remortgaging, they had an evaluation completed by the mortgage company who then rated it as zero value because of the recent flood event. And so that obviously impacted them being able to raise funds against their property. So it doesn't have zero value, but in the eyes of that mortgage company it had zero value. And that was a direct result of so it's really been, I mean, I know from before when the scheme was implemented, the Environment Agency to provide a letter confirming
confirming what level of protection was in place, and that allowed us to get insurance, for example. So if nothing has actually changed, so how is this information disseminated to?
I don't know. I don't know.
Or a question to take back?
Yeah, I can always ask. I mean, I've never asked that before, but
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, I didn't tell you. Genuinely.
Oh, sorry.
I'm just thinking.
next time then?
Just please everyone sign one of these if you're going to be in a group, because it gives us legal right to hold your information. Otherwise we can't hold it. We get into trouble.
Do you need us to do one or do we just?
No.
Yeah.
So
Anybody else who doesn't want to sign up to SID, you can sign up to the website and still get updates, etc. Okay? So that's Karen is the only
Everybody knows their stuff.